Magic round, baby. New Zealand Warriors up against the defending champs, the Penrith Panthers. Both teams coming off the back of back-to-back losses. Who's going to go down 3 in a row? Let's take a look how this plays out. Hey team, welcome back to the Warriorholic. Back here off the back of another loss there against the Roosters in the weekend. Pretty disappointing that the boys couldn't find any points. It's been a while since we've had a donut, but still they defended hard and didn't let in that many points, so that was a positive. What can we expect from this game up against the defending champions? A couple of key-ins from both sides, so hopefully it's a pretty even battle. If we played our absolute best and they're slightly off, there's a bit of a chance we could take them, but we're going to have to play some outstanding footy. Let's take a look at how both teams come into this round. So we've played 48 times over the years. They've won 28, we've only won 16. So a bit of an uneven battle there. Hopefully we get one back up over them and slightly even the tally this weekend. Last year, 46-12 to them. Not an ideal to hit out from the boys, but hopefully it'll be a lot closer to this one, if not into our favour here. This year's form, we're doing a little bit better with 5 from 9 and 4 from 8. Obviously they've had the bye and we haven't yet. We're coming off the back of 2 pretty tough rounds there with a very small turnaround. So yeah, you'd have to give them a little bit of an edge in that aspect there, having had the bye. Points for and against, we've dipped into the minuses there with 174 for and 180 against. They're well and truly in the positive with 183 for and 111 against. So, you know, unlike a lot of the teams that we've come up against within recent weeks, you know, we've actually had better stats in a lot of them, but this week we're sort of pretty even or slightly behind them in a lot of the stats. So completion rates, we're just ever so slightly ahead with 81%. We're one of the top completion rates in the comp, and they're up at 80. Line breaks, 41 for us, 35 for them. Tackle breaks, so 276 for us and 297 for them. Missed tackles, 255 for us. A lot less for them there with 207. I think they've got the least missed tackles in the comp, so very hard to crack their defence. 80 errors though for us and 81 for them, so pretty even in that aspect. And as usual, the penalties are conceded there, 59 for us, way more than their 47. I wouldn't be surprised if that continues on the weekend. Not only from our poor mistakes, but also from our friends, the referees, who like to give us a bit of a nudge there. Having a look at the lineups now then. Luckily we've got Chance Nickel-Clogstead back in after a couple of weeks off there with the concussion, up against Dylan Edwards. Both very similar style footballers, you know, not a lot of razzle-dazzle there, but man, they do a lot of hard work. Both running big meters, really solid in defence. You know, high impact players from the amount of work they do, take a lot of effort off the forward pack there. So 1 try for Chance and 5 to Dylan Edwards. No line breaks for Chance, 5 for Dylan Edwards. 22 tackle breaks for Chance versus 56. Bearing in mind that Chance has had a few rounds off due to injury, whereas Edwards has played most of their games. Tackle efficiency, Chance gets that one with 95% and 85% for Edwards. 176 metres versus 211. Man, they get some big metres out of Edwards there at the back. So if you're honest, you'd have to give this one to Edwards. I think he's probably one of the most underrated, if not players in general, but definitely one of the most underrated fullbacks in the game. Whispers going around at the moment, he may be looking at $1 million plus offers to leave the club as they start to try and figure out how they keep, you know, some of these big players in their roster with the cap challenges they've got. You know, Chance, I think he's got every ability to match Edwards, coming off the back of a bit of a break there. Hopefully he'll be really fresh and full of running. So I'll give a slight nudge to Edwards, but I hope my man Chance can definitely live up to at least match him, and if not, slightly better him there. This is where stuff gets pretty challenging for us. We've got Dallin up against Brian Tohu. 2 tries for Dallin in his 3 games and 3 tries for Tohu there. Line breaks 2 for Dallin and 5 for Tohu. Again, bearing in mind Dallin's only played 3 games this year. I think it's 3 or 4 max. 11 tackle breaks versus 25. Again, that will reflect the number of games they played. Dallin's tackle efficiency improved there a bit there. He definitely seemed to play a lot better on defence at fullback over the last couple of weeks. He was down to 62% or 61%, I think it was last week, but he's up to 75, so he did a good job with his defence last week. But Tohu there with 83. Metres run 159 versus 195. This is where we generally actually exceed our competition, but this week we're, a good 20% behind running metres in all of our back five, so it's going to be a real challenge here. Tohu is an absolute ball and muscle. He's got plenty of speed and they'll put him into gaps, so it's going to be a very, very big test of Dellin's defence this weekend, and I hope he steps up from it on the back of a pretty good weekend last week there at fullback. But yeah, we've got to give this one to Tohu. State of origin, an international winger, and as good a form as ever. Kossi up against Turuva. This will be an interesting one because Turuva hasn't had that much experience similar to Kossi there. Both similarly sized boys. 5 tries for Kossi versus 2. 5 line breaks versus 2. 15 tackle breaks versus 22. 77% tackle efficiency versus 88. Again, average metres 122 versus 174. Turuva's a really good player. Obviously, he's not quite at the same level as Brian Tohu. So you wonder if he's the target for our kicking because you're pretty much struggling to find a weakness out the back there. I think Kossi does have a slight edge in height there, but Turuva's definitely got it in the wheels. So again, it's going to be a very interesting challenge here, but I'd love to see Kossi really get aggressive and annoy the shit out of him like he did against Mulatalo a few weeks back against the Sharks. I do like the fact he seems quite quiet, but he's not afraid to get in there and mess with these other guys' heads. So he's going to have to get a bit of that in him this weekend and get a bit of mongrel to try and get one up over him. So I reckon this one's going to be pretty much of a 50-50 battle to see who turns up on the day. Montoya against Crichton. Man, this is a very, very interesting matchup there at centre. 2 big boys. I think Montoya's probably the harder running of the two, but Crichton's definitely got a lot of flair and X-factor and able to pull shit out of his ass to win games in very tight situations. We've seen him score tries in grand finals and back-to-back actually. So 3 tries versus 6, 6 line breaks versus 4, 25 tackle breaks versus 24, 75% tackle efficiency versus 89, 156 metres versus 116. So it's a pretty even matchup all in all. Hopefully this being the 100th match for Montoya, just signed another 2 years. He's going to be really up for this, and hopefully the boys will be up to play a big one for him. So, under normal circumstances, you'd have to lean towards Crichton purely on his, his star quality, but I'm going to call this one a 50-50 and give my man Montoya a chance to really give him a bit of a towel up here, hopefully. This is a bit of an interesting matchup here. You've got Adam Pompey coming off the back of some incremental improvements over the past, 4 or 5 rounds up against the old dog Pichu, who hasn't played a lot on the centres for a very long time. He's been in the middle forwards and off the bench in like a 14 role for a long time. Not as quick as he used to be. He's not the biggest guy there at centre, so hopefully Pompey might be able to use his size and a bit of his physicality here to try and get one over Tyrone Pichu here. So 2 tries apiece, 2 line breaks versus none, 24 tackle breaks versus 4, and that's a reflection of Pichu playing in the middle there. You obviously don't get as many tackle breaks. 88% tackle efficiency versus 76. So, Pompey's been holding his own there. 101 metres versus 77. So that's, you've got a guy playing 80 minutes at centre versus a guy playing limited minutes here as a bench forward. Pompey, still hasn't been re-signed. His future's a little bit up in the air. So like I said last week, he's really going to have to start stepping up and proving that we should either re-sign him or trying to find himself another club for next year. I think he's got too much talent to not be playing for someone. So hopefully this is one of those games where he makes a real statement and actually makes everyone realise that he is the guy who should be playing here next year with RTS in the centres. Hope he proves that he is the man this week. Halves, this is an interesting matchup here. Again, Dylan Walker into the halves here, still covering for Tamati Martin, up against Jerome's Luai. So we've got 1 try for Walker. Interestingly, only 2 try sets for Walker, but only 3 for Luai. Not too many there for him this year. And only 1 line break apiece. 14 tackle breaks for Walker. I couldn't find the stat on how many tackle breaks Luai's made. Tackle efficiency 90 versus 95. So you've got the very tricky, fleet-footed, bit of arrogant young fella there in Luai. I actually really like him. A lot of people don't like his arrogance, but I love the swagger he plays with. Very, as I said, fleet-footed, difficult to put on his ass, but and he's got pretty good defense for a guy who's he's not the biggest fella. Versus the old workhorse there in Walker. So contrasting games, but I'd really like to see us run a lot of traffic at Luai and try and tire him out a bit there. We're going to have to make sure we wrap up that ball because he likes to flick it around a bit when he's in the tackle. Not dissimilar from a guy like Munster. So you'd have to give it to Luai purely on the X Factor. Again, a state of origin international player versus, guys being used to playing in the middle forwards. But who knows? It could be Walker's week as well. But yeah, slight edge there to Luai. Here we go. Uncle Shawnee versus the young bull in Nathan Clary. Nathan Clary, as he was growing up, I'm pretty sure he used to watch SJ there running around at the Warriors when his dad was there. Pretty hard to compare these two, given the times in their career. But, SJ playing some of the best footy he's played for 5 or 6 years. Very controlling, very calm, having a really good kicking game at the moment. Versus a young guy, it's just like, he's an absolute machine. He's got a huge boot on him. Give him time and he'll just pudge you down in those corners every time. Just seems to play with way more time than most other players. But again, he's been struggling with a groin injury. I'd be putting a lot of pressure on him, getting him to rush those kicks. Might give that groin a bit of a twinge, I'm quite surprised they actually played him with State of Origin just around the corner there. There's going to be a lot of pressure on him to try and get through that as well. So hopefully we'll run a bit of traffic at him. And like I said, a lot of pressure on his kicks. I'd like to think SJ can hold his own here, particularly if our forwards can match them up front. But you've got to give a slight edge to Nate, as he's probably, the best player in the game at the moment. But hopefully Uncle Shawnee steps up and actually outplays him this week. Looking at the stats there, so 544 average kicking metres for SJ, 434. That's a reflection that Clary doesn't do all the kicking. Luai does a little bit there. 2 tries apiece, 8 try assists, which is good to see versus for SJ versus Clary, but Clary's had a couple of games out. 9 line break assists versus 5. So statistically, SJ's right up there. Better on defence there with 96 versus 86. But again, it comes down to that X factor in the big moments. We saw that bloody 2-point drop goal that Clary kicked a couple of weeks ago to get them into Golden Point. The guy's just got absolute class. So, but again, SBA, let's go, my big man. Time to step up and show us that you need a contract for next year as well. It's AFB up against Leota there. Leota generally a bench forward, playing a similar role to Bunty there, so you'll see that reflected in the metres, with 149 on average for Adam versus 110, 455 post-contact metres versus 300, an average of 12 hit-ups versus 14, so when Leota's on there, he does do a lot of work for a big fella. 30 tackle breaks for AFB versus 13, 6 offloads versus 8. So you can see Leota, like, he does a lot of work. He likes to throw an offload. He does actually remind me a lot with his build of Ali, actually. But, I'd like to think with the way AFB's been playing over the past couple of weeks in the best form he's been playing ever since he's been at the Warriors. So I'd like to think he could get one up over him. Another one where I think we get it up over them is Egan versus Kenny. 4 tries for Egan versus none for Kenny. 1 try assist, 1 line break assist each. 95% tackle efficiency versus 92. But the thing with Kenny here is he's really struggling to get the attack going with the Panthers. There's been a lot of criticism over there, in the Panthers fans. A lot of pundits saying, he's struggling to kind of get that full pack rolling the way Api Coruscant used to do before he left. So, a lot of calls for Sonny Luke to actually come in and start. But at the moment, we're still seeing Mitch Kenny get the nudge there. So I'm going to have to give it to my man Egan over him. Egan will be keen to stand up and have a big game against his old club there. I think that's a really interesting opportunity for us to put a lot of forward, traffic straight up the guts here, just off at the dummy half, and make Kenny make a lot of tackles, and hopefully that will slow down the solidity of their attack. Bunty up against James Fisher-Harris. Shit, look at the average difference in metres there. 55 versus 134. Post-contact metres, this is an interesting stat there. 177 for Bunty versus 105 for James Fisher-Harris. But I think that's a reflection of he hasn't played that many games, because that's the total post-contact. 5 average hit-ups versus 12. 7 tackle breaks versus 4. But again, that's only in a couple of games for Fisher-Harris. No offloads for Bunty and 4 for Fisher-Harris. So, yeah, in my opinion, James Fisher-Harris on his day is one of the top 2 or 3 props in the game. The question is, how's he going to run off that injury? I think it was a knee that he's been out with. You know, we're going to have to hit him early and put him on the ground because he's an absolute bull. He will draw in a number of defenders, and if we can let him get that offload away, he can cause us a lot of trouble, not dissimilar from how Nelson was. So, interesting battle there. You know, I guess we will see AFB go up against him, and I think in his form and not having any injuries at the moment, you'd like to think AFB could get one up over him. And Bunty and Leota are quite similar there, but this is going to really set the tone for the whole game. So, need Bunty to step up, my man. Continue on working that hard. You know, does a lot of defence there. Would have been a lot more momentum from him off those runs and a lot more hit-ups while he is out there on the field. So, another interesting one here. Jackson Ford up against Zach Hoskins. Not too many games for Hoskins. He's obviously not one of their, you know, wouldn't have been one of their first choice back rowers there, particularly last year. And not necessarily this year. I think he's only played 3 games with 4 line breaks for Ford versus he's got 3. Neither of them got line break assists. 90% tackle efficiency versus 95. 89 metres versus 95. Very similar players. Neither of them are the flashiest. Both really big workhorses do it, you know, get through a power of work. But I think for me, this comes down to whether Ford can control those stupid errors and penalties that he's been giving away in really key times over the past 3 or 4 weeks. I was a massive fan with him over the starting rounds here, and he does get through a lot of work, and I do like him, but shit, he's made some silly mistakes that have cost us, particularly with those penalties, you know, giving them piggybacks out of our bloody quarter in the first 20 or so. Just, you know, not focusing on taking those passes. So I really hope he steps up and has an error-free game this week, because he's going to need it, because the Panthers will definitely punish us off the back of those piggyback penalties or loose ball. Going to call it a 50-50 this one. Near quarter up against Sorenson. 2 line breaks versus 3. 2 line break assists versus 2. 95% apiece for our tackle efficiency. 100 metres versus 89. Not much in this. Near quarter's a bigger man here. Sorenson is a genuine workhorse, full of energy. You know, he's not, again, not the flashiest back rower. You know, I think they rely on both of their back rowers, similar to us, do a lot of, you know, workhorse kind of roles. But I think we saw Murata's run a little bit more like this past weekend and the weekend before. I just need him to get more involved, really start using his ball playing skills to try and put those centres and wings away. We're not getting enough from him when he's just doing all the guts work and all the tackling. So I'd like him to step that up to a next level. I think he's got the ability to outplay Sorenson, who's a solid player, but he's not traditionally a starting player. He's more of a bench player versus, you know, Near Quarter is a genuine international star. So let's hope that boy can step up and really put a platform on us on that right-hand edge this week. So, does Tohu play? That's the $1 million question. We know he's trained most this week. The word is he's there. Nothing has come, you know, this is just after lunch here on a Friday. No word yet that he has been taken out, and we probably won't know right up until the last minute. So I'm going to assume he's going to play. We've got 2 really pivotal players here, and him and Yo, essential to the attack on both teams. They play that, you know, third half role with their distribution. They both get through a power of work. Interesting, like they play, you know, the stats I see there, it's more like Yo being a prop with giving his post-contact meters and so forth. So there's no stats on his line break and line break assists there. But both really high tackle efficiency. You know, Tohu, not necessarily a big yards man. He does a lot of the dirty work, but Yo does do a lot more hit-ups, I think, and gets a lot of yards there. So I'll be really curious to see how this matchup goes. You know, both probably, you know, top 2 or 3 players in their team, both first picked every time. So too hard for me to split these 2. So on the interchange here, we've got Bailey Sirenen, Josh Curran, Dominic Dimitrix Fakula, and Tom Ali versus Sonny Luke, Lindsay Smith, Liam Henry, and Jamin Salmon. So they've gone for a hooker, 2 props, and a half/back rower, whereas we've got like the hooker/back rower, genuine back rower, or 2 actually genuine back rowers there and a prop. So we've probably got the more mobile, sort of high energy bench here. However, both Lindsay Smith and Liam Henry are very big boys, both well over 1.90 m, 105, 106 kg respectively. I think it might be Liam Henry's debut. He's got very solid numbers there in his New South Wales Cup. I think it's around 155 metres he's playing as a starting prop there, so he definitely gets through the work. So we're going to have to work hard to tie up that middle with 4 decent sized props on their side versus we've just got the 3 in our rotation. So again, up until last weekend, I think we generally had the better bench, but with the injuries we've got at the moment, I'm not sure that this is the strongest bench we've got out there. That said, neither is theirs. They've got guys in there who wouldn't normally be in there, and Lindsay Smith and Liam Henry, if they had no injuries and so forth. So it's a bit of a 50-50, but I'm probably going to lean it towards them, as I do with the overall game. Look, I'd love to say the Warriors are going to win this, but, if I'm honest with myself, defending premiers coming off the back of 2 losses, they're going to be hurting. They didn't have Clary last week, and they didn't have Fisher Harris, 2 of their best players. They're both back this week. They'll be looking to really fire up and get back onto the winning run. Fast conditions up there in Brisbane. We're going to have to play a hell of a game, and they're going to have to be slightly off their game. The only way I think we win this is we really fire up and dominate them in the middle there. Get them on the back foot. We're going to put a lot of pressure on Clary's kicking game. We know they like to block them there with that player, stands on the left and the right of the dummy half there to block our markers to get through to Clary. So I think we need to run at him from the outside and just put some genuine pressure on him. Otherwise, if we give him too much time to kick, he's going to put us under a lot of pressure. Likewise, SJ's going to have to get pretty creative with his kicking game. I think we need to kick it into the corners, actually look at kicking out at times to try and set our line to stop their big runners getting those high balls in 20 or 30 metres pace up before they meet the defending line coming through. I think we've seen that work in the past against big strong runners. We've had it done to RTS in the past when he was playing for us. So look for SJ to put those balls out in the corner, or really put them right back into the corner. Looking to put up high bombs so we can get our defenders up underneath them and put pressure on Tohu and stop him and Dylan Edwards, getting those massive running meters. If we don't win that battle up front, we don't win the kicking game, we could get really carved up here. So I'm really hoping that Webby's got these boys up. I know they're going to be tired. They'll be looking towards that bye to give themselves a bit of a reset there. Looking forward to the origin period with a lot of their competition is, losing some of their best players. But we've got to focus on this week. Focus what's in front of us. Let's get that start right. Let's reduce those errors and stop giving away silly penalties. If we do that, we've got every chance at pushing them for 80 minutes. I'd say we're probably only a 20 or 30% chance, but should I believe we can do it. Let's go the Mighty Warriors. Up there in Magic Round. Let's make some magic happen. All in the Warriorholic for 2023. Let's go.